Hey everyone, we're going to start our final chapter on our final biomolecule, which is lipids. In this chapter, we're going to be, just like in our other chapters, discussing biological roles of this biomolecule, lipids, some of the structure and properties of different types of lipids. So, we're going to be breaking this down into storage type lipids, membrane type lipids, and signaling type lipids. So remember, that's kind of been carrying us through. So, just as a review on our biomolecules themselves, let's talk about the biomolecules we have covered and compare to the new one we're talking about, which is lipids. So, we started our discussions talking about proteins, which, if you remember, their base building block is the amino acid. So we had our discussions about amino acids, and these polymerize to make proteins. We then talked about carbohydrates, which can be large and complex. And these are made up of small building block carbohydrates uh, or different sugars. So remember building blocks like um, a monosaccharide of glucose that is then linked or polymerized together will form a complex carbohydrate. So the other word we can use is monosaccharide. Now, our next type of biomolecule forms nucleic acids, either things like DNA and RNA or other forms of molecules like ATP, a signaling energy molecule. And these are built up of our nucleotides. So, nucleotides is the building block here, and these polymerize to make nucleic acids. Now, at the very beginning of our chapter, we actually there is a question in your homework about the different biomolecules and what is the unique one in the sense of how it is built. And that is the answer to that was lipids. Lipids do not have a overall similar building block. They do not have a common building block that makes them a lipid. They are all very unique. But we are going to be talking about some structures that are common among lipids. But again, there's no specific building block that polymerizes to make the large structure that is a lipid. So lipids are very different in this sense. All of the other biomolecules we covered, they have a pretty standardized building block that polymerizes, right? It links to itself to form the bigger piece. And lipids do not do that. They do not polymerize to form one larger structure. Instead, they in fact pack together. So they're a very diverse class. Lipids structurally have a lot of different ways they can look. These are just some examples of different types of lipids just to show you how structurally diverse they can look. The one defining point about a lipid, what makes a lipid, is that it is an organic molecule and it's categorized by low solubility in water. So being hydrophobic. Lipids don't have a very specific definition. Again, it could be any organic molecule that's pretty hydrophobic. That is what we call a lipid. So again, structurally very diverse. There's no kind of thing that holds these structures together besides that they are usually hydrocarbons, they are hydrophobic, and they are organic molecules. Lipids, because of their diverse structure, also have very diverse biological functions. One of the main biological functions you will see lipids is for their storage of energy. This is what we talk about for mammals and certain organisms as our fat storage, right? Lipids can be stored and used as energy in organisms. This is because they have a lot of energy packed in a relatively small molecule, and they pack together very well. Now, these can also be used for insulation. Many organisms, again, especially mammals, utilize lipids as a form of insulation. This is because they do not conduct heat very well. They have low thermal conductivity. Um, they absorb a lot of heat, but do not conduct it through, so high heat capacity. They also absorb shock. So if you get hit by something, they can kind of act as a barrier to absorb that hit. Lipids also are what give us good water repellent. So, a lot of organisms will utilize their hydrophobic nature to keep certain surfaces or areas of the organism dry. Um, things like organisms like birds, for example, utilize lipid coatings to prevent excess wetting if they're landing in water, for example. They also can prevent the loss of water via evaporation, so they can keep water in by using this lipid barrier on an organism. A lot of marine mammals also utilize lipids for buoyancy and acoustics. This helps keep them from just sinking. Having some amount of fat, which is pretty buoyant in water, will keep you semi afloat. Now, of course, the lipids, one of their major functions we will be seeing is as a membrane. Um, Purely, most all cells, any type of cells across all living organisms, includes bacterial, eukaryotic, are going to be utilizing lipids in some form as part of their cell membrane. Now, lipids biologically at a cellular level also can, for example, be cofactors for enzymes. So they can be part of a protein. They can act in a way inside a protein to help a reaction. Examples of this are vitamin K, which is a lipid vitamin. It helps in blood clot formation. And one major one, coenzyme Q, which is a major molecule that helps in ATP synthesis in the mitochondria. Uh, in the future chapters of biochemistry, where we're looking at cell signaling, coenzyme Q gets brought up a lot. Again, its lipid like nature helps it to kind of move around the mitochondria very well. Now, certain types of lipids can also be used as signaling molecules. We can generally break these down into the name of hormones. So, steroid hormones, pancrean hormones, different growth factors, and other vitamins like vitamin A and D, which are precursors to certain hormones, all act in some way to signal events to certain cells or other organs in the body. Now, lipids also can be used for pigments. This is probably one thing that is less commonly known about lipids. These can be or are the properties of things like tomatoes, carrots, pumpkins, and even in some birds that make them colorful. Generally, organic molecules are not very colorful, but these molecules, these pigment molecules, these lipid pigments, use certain alternating single double bonds to bring color to uh, certain organisms. One last example is as an antioxidant. So, vitamin E, which is shown here, is a lipid. It's a large hydrocarbon that's insoluble in water. This is vitamin E. and it acts generally as an antioxidant molecule. Here's one of those examples of pigments, just so you can see. Again, this is another type of structure of lipid. Here we're showing two lipids that are responsible for pigments in different birds. One gives a bright red color that you usually see in things like cardinals, and the other gives a bright yellow color, which you might see in something like a goldfinch. And you can see the main thing that allows for the color is this, as I said, alternating single double bond. So if you see again, it goes double bond, single bond, double bond, single bond. This long alternating chain allows for transfer of electrons along that chain and gives this organic molecule a bright color.